We are going to begin with county tonight. Malcolm McNabb is the chair. I'm not sure if Malcolm, are you prepared to chair from afar, or would you rather have Tom do it in person?
I have the agenda, but I don't have the details of the business and reports, so I'd appreciate if Tom would do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Turn it over to you, Tom.
Okay. Going to call to order the June 28th, 2023 meeting of the Nantucket County Commissioners. Thanks. First order of business, second order of business is election of officers. I believe we
did that.
That was a typo.
Got
Yeah.
from holdover from last time. Next order of business is announcements. The county commission meeting is being audio and video recorded. I will now recognize any public comment for county matters for those items not on the agenda. Online? No. Seeing none. Any new business? Erica? No. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes and warrants. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
By roll call. Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dawn Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee. Aye. Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
That passes. Tom Dixon, aye. That passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is official business / citizen requests. The first item is a proposed salary increase for the Registrar of Deeds pursuant to MGL Chapter 36. Libby, please.
Sure. Thank you. Just to quickly introduce this item, as the board will recall, we reviewed with you a recent compensation and classification study that we had conducted over the last year and a half or so. We reviewed that with you last month. It was involved some salary increases for non-union staff, and information will be used as part of ongoing collective bargaining negotiations. The review included a review of the Register of Deeds position. It is an elected county position, the only elected county position. And previously, the board authorized town administration to use its discretion for the non-union salary increases in accordance with the bands and recommendations of the comp and class study. And that can't be done here because the register as an elected position is subject to state statute for salary increases, which are specifically the realm of the county commissioners. So there's a recommendation in your packet to increase the salary from, I think, 119 something to, I think it's like 131. I don't have it right in front of me, but
It's from 119,854 to 133,038.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the salary increase for the registrar? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, please. Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dawn Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Tom Dixon, aye. That passes unanimously. Next order of business is request for approval and execution of amendment to temporary easement agreement over Head of Plains Road dated March 24th, 2021 and filed with Nantucket Registry District of the Land Court as document number 168947. Assuming we have Vicky.
Vicky is not on yet. She's trying. Oh, she just popped on. Vicky, we're ready for you if you can hear us. I don't know if she's got her volume yet. Vicky? She's having some technical difficulty. Vicky, we're on Head of Plains. If you can unmute and join.
I can. Can you hear me? And can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
And
had
see.
a problem getting connected. Apologize. So before you, you have an amendment to the temporary easement agreement, which has technically expired. It was due to expire this past year, and we were unable to get an extension agreed upon prior to this time. as this project is moving forward now, however, we have wanted to get this amendment to the temporary easement agreement extended so that the residents of Sheep Pond Road will be able to have legal access over this easement area, and this project can continue to be developed. So we originally drafted this agreement and this amendment to provide for a year's extension till March 24th, 2024, with the need, if the town or county needed an extension, that they would request one, and the grantors that had given the original extension would not unreasonably withhold their approval. Two of the grantors had agreed to that language in the original amendment. Two of them have not. They have since come back with an alternative revision, which is, rather than granting a 1-year extension of the easement agreement, that they would give a 2-year extension till March 24th, 2025. And in the event at that time that the town and county still needed another extension, they will require that the county come back to them for their approval. And that was basically the revised offer that has been made by the two grantors who had not agreed to the original amendment. So you have before you, this potential offer to revise this amendment for a 2-year extension.
So my understanding is they didn't agree to the 1, they wanted a 2. Am I getting that right?
So they did not agree. They agreed to have a 1-year extension, but we also had in there that if we needed an additional extension, that they would agree to grant us one without any end date in there. And they came back and said that they wanted a 2-month end date. And basically we would end up having to come back to them again at the end of 2 months if we needed to request another extension. So quite honestly, these negotiations, they take a while. And rather than continually coming back for these extensions, we had put language in there that would have, no further requests for extensions required, that we would just be able to continue with the project without any end date.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could comment on that. I represent the property owners in question, and I've been in quite a bit of contact with Vicky about this over the last few days. My clients, over whose property the access is now being obtained, they removed a fence to allow the access to take place over 2 years ago. And obviously they would like to get the process over with as soon as possible, as I think everybody in the situation would. They are frustrated because originally, before the full extent of the problem was, I think, understood by everybody involved, the expectation that it would be wrapped up in a year. Well, we're now 2.5 years into it almost, and it isn't. But we understand what the remaining issues are and how long it may take to deal with them. They are not willing, and I think you can understand why, to have an open-ended blank check in terms of how long this process is going to take. And they feel that there needs to be a hard stop at some point. Not that they wouldn't agree under any circumstances to extend it beyond that point, but they want to have an input on it rather than just, it just carries on de facto indefinitely, forever and ever, beyond our lifetimes. Well, theirs or somebody's. So in any event, what we have proposed, what I talked to Vicky about today, and after talking with my clients, we propose is a 1-year extension with an automatic further extension without, the town has the absolute right to a 1-year further extension beyond that. So in other words, 2 years from the present expiration date, which was March 4 of 2023 to March 24 of 2025. After that, the county can ask for further extensions, but it would be in the discretion of the property owners as to whether they would be granted. Now, I think, and we all agree after all parties to this situation, and there are many stakeholders involved, have had discussion. We had a discussion of council the other day over the phone, which was extremely productive and I think helped to flesh out the issues and understanding as to what's involved. And briefly, I think that it's possible that this will be wrapped up by March of next year. But there are factors that I think are beyond the town's control that could extend beyond that time. I think with diligence, with the town pressing some of the parties involved to make final decisions involved in the situation, that it's extremely realistic that this could be resolved by March of 2025. So rather than, first of all, we want a checkoff point in March 2024 so that we know where things stand. And then understanding that it will probably take longer than that, we'll let it go until March of 2025. Meanwhile, we'll see where it goes. And I've also asked that we be kept apprised on a regular basis, that there be some sort of annual reporting, and that not annual reporting, but bi-monthly or something like that, periodic reporting, so that we have an understanding of what's going on, can help with any issues that we may be able to help with, and keep the situation moving. So that's where it sits. And I think with a great deal of good effort on the part of Vicky and the other participants in the call we had the other day, I think we have a solution that I think should work for all parties. So I would urge you to approve the document. Hasn't been signed yet by my clients, but I spoke with them on the phone today and they're completely on board with it on that basis, and will do so. Thanks. And let me know if there's any other question.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Make a motion to approve the document. Excuse me.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dawn Hill Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Tom Dixon, aye. That passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
Next order of business is Commissioners' Reports / Comments, 2023-2024, appointment of county representative to Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission. That is Dawn, who's going to be the representative. Continue on. Entertain a motion to approve her appointment to the NP and EDC.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dawn Hill Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Tom Dixon, aye. That passes unanimously. Entertain a motion for adjournment for the county commissioners
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dawn Hill Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Tom Dixon, aye.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I will call the June 28th Select Board meeting to order at almost 5:45. I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda. We have a couple of announcements, but I just wanted to, before we go to those, I just wanted to recognize that we had a very significantly attended memorial today for one of Nantucket's firefighters. And I wanted to give recognition to the fact that so many of those men and women that were there lost a part of their brotherhood and sisterhood, and the family that and friends that said goodbye to him, but very particularly the family have between the Hertzes and the Merkses and the Tophams have had a lot of dedication to the town and given a lot of volunteer time over the years and still do. And it was very beautiful. Many of us were in attendance, and I wanted to take a moment to say something. And I will turn it over to Libby for announcements.
Thank you. This meeting is being video and audio recorded. I wanted to give a little recognition to something that is not on your announcements. Our Chief Technology Officer position, which will be vacated this Friday, has been filled with Mike Alvarez, who is here in the audience. He's been serving as the town's information systems administrator for the past several years. He will start as CTO basically Saturday or Monday. And we want to thank retiring CTO Karen McGonigal for her years of service for the town. So thank you to both of them. And there's Mike. The next announcement relates to a survey that's underway, and I think the transportation program manager is going to give us a little update on this.
Thank you, Lydia. Madam Chair, just want to say we asked and the community answered. We did do an initial round of surveying for the community for the updating of the long-range transportation plan. For those who don't know, the long-range transportation plan is a federally required physically constrained document that outlines what the community would like the transportation system to be 20 years from now. During the month of May, we conducted a visioning survey. We had an overwhelming number of responses. So I appreciate the efforts of those who took the survey and then asked others to participate in the outreach as well. During this, we asked the same level of effort for the second round of surveying to help set the priorities for these for the transportation plan. The survey will be open. It's open now. We're about halfway to the number of responses we received during the first round. So thank you for those who took the survey. Again, we ask that you encourage others through in all parts of the community to participate in the survey, which closes on July the 11th. And those of you might have collected some of these business cards that we've handed out during our first round of participation. If you still have any, please distribute those as well to encourage others to participate. If you ran out, we have others in our office. This is a good way to kind of spread the word, scan the QR code, or just go to the website, nantucket-ma.gov/LRTP, and take the survey. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the process. But again, this was an ask to solicit participation in the surveying.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Brooke.
Mike, I just want to confirm that the survey again is available in Spanish and Portuguese, and there's a translate button at the top of the survey when you click on it, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have outreach marketing that we try to do for Spanish and Portuguese. The survey is, and I don't know how many languages, I believe every language that's offered. So there is a drop-down menu for any language that you may need. Our marketing materials are geared towards English, Spanish, and Portuguese, though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Good luck. We'll keep handing those out. Are there any select board reports or comments? Opening, Brooke?
I would like to wish our colleague, Tom Dixon, a happy birthday. And I also want to acknowledge Andrew Vorse, who's here for likely hopefully it is his last meeting of the select board during his tenure as planning director. Congratulations on your retirement, Andrew.
Hopefully it won't be your last meeting, just as director. And Tom, thanks for spending your birthday with us. I would have brought cupcakes if I'd known earlier. Okay, I don't believe that we have any follow-up from prior that needs to be addressed tonight. Are there any public comments for items otherwise not on the agenda for discussion? I'm just going to note that our policy is a limit of 3 minutes. So we are timing. Would you do that for me? And I will go to you, Carl Borchert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board, town administration, my fellow citizens. I'm Carl Borchert. I'm a long-term resident of the island. Tonight, I'm here to speak in favor of host community agreements for Nantucket with offshore wind farm developers. The town has an agreement with Vineyard Wind for $16 million over 8 years. The first payment was made to the Community Foundation of Nantucket, the administrator of the fund, in November 2021 for $4 million. These funds can be used for food, rental, and utility assistance for those in need, town infrastructure projects such as sewer and water system upgrades, town coastal resilience projects, and historic preservation projects. Other uses could be a new middle school and scholarship assistance for the town scholarship fund. Further uses could include traffic mitigation projects such as widening roads, building sidewalks and bike paths, and other traffic-related projects like refurbishing roundabouts and building new ones, along with public transportation funding. Equipment and vehicles can be purchased for the fire and police departments, as well as equipment for the airport. Other town departments could also get equipment such as the IT department. Retrofitting town buildings for energy efficiency and developing local renewable energy projects could also be on the list. South Coast Wind, Park City Wind, Commonwealth Wind, Orsted, Eversource, and Equinor could all be approached as they work through design and permitting in the next few months and years to work for host community agreements. If 5 agreements were signed for $20 million each, then we could have $100 million transferred into the town's coffers over time. You're the highest elected town policy making body, and I urge you to consider what I am talking to you about today. The financial benefits of host community agreements with offshore wind farm developers are very important for our growing island. These benefits can help keep operating overrides in check and help to control real estate tax increases. Most of all, these agreements can help fund human needs here and fund much needed physical infrastructure needs. Please give some careful consideration to this idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Megan Perry.
Thank you very much. I will be very quick. I know I only have 3 minutes. My first question was, it's my understanding that based on articles that I read in the current, that the select board is currently looking at the purchase of the youth hostel or entertaining ideas with that, with the thought of it going towards affordable housing and then asking taxpayers to potentially at town meeting provide the funding for that. One of my questions is, the town received $6.5 million at town meeting, this last town meeting, towards affordable housing. So we have the $6.5 million to use on affordable housing. And I know that affordable housing is a thing for this board. So do we really need to go ask taxpayers for more money for affordable housing when we already have it and that becomes available July 1st? So maybe the funds that the town is anticipating being available for the purchase of the youth hostel could go towards other items like the negotiations with the teachers for raises, something like that, because that would be newly found funds that weren't maybe available a little bit ago if the town chooses to use the 6.5 that it's already been received from the current town meeting. That was one of my first questions. And then I have a question. It's an item on the agenda, but it's a contract that you guys are looking to approve. Can I ask a question now, or do you want me to wait for you to go through each one individually?
You should probably just wait for pending, when we're on pending contracts, but
But it-
I'll note that you can ask.
I can ask the question
Yes.
during pending contracts.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely. Carolyn Govan is online.
Hello, this is Carolyn Gobbin, and I'm a visitor to Nantucket for the last 30 years. Our family has been coming. And I wanted to give a big thank you to the Council on Disability and to Brenda McDonough. The ramps have made our family have a wonderful time and be able to get into the houses. And Brenda goes beyond the call of duty. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the town for having those ramps. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments this evening? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to approval of minutes.
New business.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's no new business. We will move on to approval of minutes, payroll warrants and treasury warrants, and we'll take pending contracts separately. If someone would like to make a motion to that effect.
Move approval of.
Second.
Okay.
Did that include the release of the executive session minutes also?
Yes.
Yes. All in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Those all carry unanimously. Does the board have any questions on pending contracts? I know we have one public question at least.
Thank you again. The one that I had a question about is professional service agreement, and that's for Pierce Cote for $54,000 communications consulting services. I believe that's the town's PR firm. Is that correct? Okay. What's the purpose of hiring the PR firm?
Libby?
It's a communications firm really, but the purpose is to, the scope of services, I don't know if I have it handy. I don't know if you do, Brian, but it's meant to cover a variety of things, including assistance with outreach for certain types of things as needed, media training for employees, assistance with messaging on sensitive items. They review social media and other news stories to help us determine if we need to be more transparent or public or develop a particular approach to responding. And it is also part of the communications plan that the board endorsed last November.
Okay. Is there a, like a job description or what the town receives for the $54,000 a year?
There's a scope of services. We can send it to you.
You can send it to me. Okay. Do I need to FOIA for that, or is this an okay way?
No, I
ask?
can send it to
You
you.
can send it. Okay. That would be wonderful. May I ask a question on minutes you just approved? Really quickly, or do you want me to do a FOIA for a copy of the
Yeah,
meeting?
just,
minutes?
yeah, go ahead.
Just send an
Or-
email for them?
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Thank
that's
you so much.
Okay. Oh, Kathy Baird, did you have a question on the pending contracts?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I was just curious about the renewal contract for the Granicus work, which I believe is on the agenda for tonight. Considering that they haven't, opened up the portal for registry yet, and that was in their scope of work last year. I'm just curious, is that moved to this year's scope? Is there, it just seems like they haven't done the work that they were contracted to do. And I wondered what was in the follow-on contract, if you could share that.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yeah,
So
we'll have Brian.
the
address that.
the current contract still includes, the current contract that's in force still includes the scope of work to get the portal up and running. The next contract is for the continuation of the software that runs the portal and continues to do that work. I will note that it is $98,000 in the agreements that you have before you. However, we are trying to get that reduced given the time delays that have been incurred based on their inability to do some of the work in a timely fashion. So it's very likely that this contract that will start in the middle of July will actually be below the 98,000 once we formally get their number. But we wanted to have it in place so that we could continue the services. If we stop, we would essentially be starting all over looking for a new vendor at this point. So.
Okay, thank you. And then,
Kathy?
yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the pending contracts?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye for all except the Granicus contract till it's resolved.
okay. Don Holgate, aye, so can we,
They all pass with them.
they all passed except for the one has a different vote, a 4-1 vote. Got it, okay. Next up, we have the annual select board committee appointments. These we do by ballot vote. We have one member who is not present this evening. He submitted his ballot votes in a sealed envelope to Erica Mooney, which she has here unopened. The procedure that we have decided upon, if we need to do a revote on any of these appointments, which can happen from time to time, that we will have Malcolm speak his vote first before any other votes are read. Does everyone agree that that's a transparent, fair way to handle it?
We'll write ours, hand it in. Yes.
And he'll speak
That's
his,
fine.
and then Erica will say ours as we normally do. Okay. So we often start with the ones that there's no contest essentially, and do those as a blanket and then start going through the others. Okay.
So I move approval of the appointments of the applicants for the following commissions that are uncontested applications: Agricultural Commission, Capital Program Committee, Cemetery Committee, Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, Council on Aging, Cultural Council, Roads and Right-of-Way, SSA Port Council, thank you, ZBA, and the one ZBA alternate seat. One of the two. And the motion is to appoint by acclamation all uncontested seats.
Okay,
Second.
we will do that by roll call. All those in favor, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Those are all approved unanimously. Now we will go into the contested seats. I'll just try to make sure I do this in order. Airport Commission, we have 2 seats available. We have 3 applicants: Anthony Buscarin, Robert Curry, and Arthur Gasbaro. And so we will cast our votes for 2.
Thank you. Okay, it's a unanimous vote for Anthony Buscarin and Arthur Gasparro, 5 votes each. They'll be reappointed. Do you want me to do it?
All right, no, next up is Board of Health. We have 2 seats available and 3 applicants: Ann Smith, Maureen Marklinger, and Meredith Lepre. So please cast your votes for 2 and pass them in.
Thanks. Good thing they were all.
Okay, next up,
Oh, do you want to read the vote?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to,
Ahead.
I'm trying to tally it as I go.
I'm trying to get Tom out for his birthday.
Okay, Ann Smith received unanimous 5 votes. Maureen Marklinger received votes from Chair Holgate and Ms. Moore. And Meredith Lepre received votes from Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Mr. McNabb. So it is Ann Smith and Meredith Lepre.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Conservation Commission. We have 2 seats available, and there are actually 5 applicants for this. Tim Brain, C. Marshall Beal, Ashley Erisman, Bertram Bo Wilson, Marcia J. Brown, MD. Please cast your votes for 2.
All right, we're gonna have a little tiebreaker. So Tim Brain received votes from Ms. Holgate, Ms. Moore, Mr. Fee, and Mr. Dixon. Mark Beal received votes from Mr. Dixon and Mr. McNabb. Arisman received votes from Mr. Fee and Mr. McNabb. Sorry, I should be calling him doctor. Bo Wilson received votes from Ms. Holgate and Ms. Moore. So we're gonna need to vote again for that second seat. There's a tie between Beal, Arisman, and Wilson. They each have 2.
Okay, so in this case, Malcolm McNabb will have you cast your vote first.
Erica, could you repeat the numbers of them all first for me, please?
Sure. Tim Brain received 4 votes, so he's appointed. Mark Beal had 2, Ashley Arisman had 2, and Bo Wilson had 2.
Ashley,
Okay. Mr. Fee voted for Ashley Arisman. Ms. Holgate voted for Mr. Beal. Mr. Dixon voted for Mr. Beal. And Ms. Moore voted for Mr. Wilson. So it's still a tie between Mr. Beal and Ms. Arisman. We need a tiebreaker between those 2. Malcolm, do you want to tell me who your third vote is for?
Ashley,
Mr. Fee is for Arisman. Ms. Holgate is for Mr. Beal. Mr. Dixon is for Mr. Beal. And Ms. Moore is for Mr. Beal. So it's going to be Tim Brain and Mark Beal.
Okay. Next up is Finance Committee. We have 3 seats available and there are 6 applicants for this. Or actually 5. There are 5 now. And I do want to note as we're doing this that I did receive a letter of resignation from Peter McEachern today. And I would like to thank him so much for his service, but he just, his job and family demands have not allowed him to have the time to give it his full attention. So there will be a seat open for our next round of appointments.
Will you forward that to me if you haven't already?
Yeah, I know it's Libby was copied, but yes, I'll send it on to you. And I think Denise received it as well. Okay, so please cast your vote for 3.
Thanks. right, so Dr. McNeil voted for it. Ms. Cronow, Ms. Roach, and Mr. Wright. Mr. Fee voted for Cronow, Roach, and Mr. Giachetti. Ms. Holgate, Cronow, Roach, and Giachetti. Giachetti, thank you. Ms. Moore, Cronow, Roach, and Giachetti. And Mr. Dixon is Cronow, Roach, and Giachetti. So it'll be Joanna Roach, Denise Cronow, and Rob Giachetti. Unanimous for Cronow and Roach, and 4 votes for Giachetti.
Okay. Next up, we have the Historic District Commission Associate Member. There's 1 seat available and 3 applicants: Howard Matz, Joseph Robert Paul, and Jesse Dutra. Please cast your votes for 1.
All right, Joe Paul got votes from Ms. Holgate, Mr. Fee, and Dr. McNabb. Jesse Dutra, Ms. Moore, and Mr. Dixon. It is Joe Paul.
Okay, next up, we have the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There is 1 seat available and 2 applicants, Meg Browers and David Gray. Please cast your vote for 1.
And Malcolm, you did not give me a vote for this one. So you're
That's
gonna-
my error. That's my error.
So you'll just have to let me know which one.
Okay, we will just have you speak first after we hand in our votes.
Okay, my apologies.
No worries. Thanks. Actually, Malcolm, why don't you tell me who you're voting for?
Yep.
Meg Browers.
Okay, Meg Browers received votes from Ms. Moore, Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Dr. McNabb. David Gray received a vote from the chair. So it's Meg Browers.
Okay, next up, we have the Nantucket Historical Commission. There are 2 seats available and 5 applicants: Rita Carr, Linda Williams, George Butterworth, Ethan McMurrow, and Joe Bedell.
Thank you. Okay. Rita Carr received votes from Ms. Moore, Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Dr. McNabb. That's 4 votes. Dr. Butterworth received votes from Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Dr. McNabb. That's 3 votes. Ethan McMorrow received 1 vote from the chair. And Joe Bedell received 2 votes, 1 from the chair and 1 from Ms. Moore. So it's going to be Rita Carr and Dr. Butterworth.
Okay, next up, we have the planning board alternate. We have 1 seat available and 2 applicants, Howard Matz and Stephen Welch. Please cast your votes.
Thanks. It was unanimous. 5 votes for Mr. Welch.
Okay, next up, we have the scholarship committee. There are 2 seats available and we have 3 applicants, Anthony Rocky Fox, Melissa McVicker, and Janice Starr Duart. Please cast votes for 2.
Okay, Rocky Fox received votes from the chair, Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Dr. McNabb. Melissa McVicker received votes from the chair and Ms. Moore. Jana Duart received votes from Ms. Moore, Mr. Fee, Mr. Dixon, and Dr. McNabb. So it's Rocky Fox and Jana Duart.
Okay, Brooke?
Madam Chair, I'd like to request that the board consider an exception to our appointment policy tonight. And I'll explain why. Ms. Botticelli applied late for her seat on the ZBA and has indicated that would apply in round 2 for the vacant seat on the ZBA as an alternate. And with the Surfside Crossing review of the hack decision actually happening now, awaiting that process to have Ms. Botticelli appointed and have her knowledge of that whole process remain in place during the short timeline that's left on those hearings and that process. I would like to ask the board to consider whether we might appoint Ms. Botticelli to the alternate seat this evening instead of waiting for the normal process.
Any comments?
I'm fine with that. I think having that historical knowledge carry forward would be very important.
So did you want to make that a formal motion?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Malcolm.
How long is long waiting?
Probably a month.
Okay.
Oh, I can tell you.
We have to advertise all the vacancies and there's I mean, just to note, there are quite a few still vacant seats if people are looking for something to do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Malcolm, the deadline for completing that process will expire before we would go through our normal appointment timeline, as I understand it.
Thank you. I understand.
Yeah, so I would move that we appoint Ms. Botticelli to the alternate seat on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fay,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. All right, that completes our annual appointments. This is always challenging and really appreciate everyone who applied and everyone who gives their service and continues to give their service. And like I said, there's still a lot of vacancies, so please take a look at them and apply for something else if you didn't get a seat tonight. Next up, we have a Citizen Departmental Committee request, a Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee recommendation for a 2023 pilot pedicab license for NanTukTuk. Libby?
Just a really quick introduction, and I think Mike's going to take over. The board will hopefully recall that at your meeting on April 5th, this request came before you for a kind of a pilot program here for this pedicab license. It was referred to Traffic Safety Work Group and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, BPAC. They've talked about it, and I believe there's a recommendation that Mike's going to review.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, the Bike and Pedestrian, Mike Burns, Transportation Program Manager. I'm actually a staff person to the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, not a serving member. The BPAC met twice to review this item. They did view a demonstration at their April 27th meeting to see what the vehicle looked like, to ask questions. There was a follow-up meeting on May 26th where 4 recommendations were made. 1, up to 2 pedicabs be permitted to operate this summer. 2, the pedicabs be permitted to have a Class 1 pedal assist electric motor restricted to 15 miles per hour. 3, the service area be expanded to include portions of Pleasant Street, Union Street, Washington Street, Sparks Avenue, and Orange Street between the core area and the Mid-Island area, and not within or beyond the Milestone Rotary. And 4th, that a notice be provided on the pedicab vehicle to solicit public input on the operations using, say, a QR code, website address, or similar guidance to encourage public participation during the pilot. Happy to answer any questions.
Board questions? And Malcolm, just speak up if you
Okay.
want.
I have one question. Will children be required to wear helmets?
Hello, my name is Michael Gormley, representing NanTukTuk. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for taking the time to discuss this. Per your question, Ms. Moore, children will be required to be with a parent or guardian, and they will be required to wear a seatbelt. Although, as it's a tricycle, a helmet will not be required, although encouraged.
As a follow-up, and will you supply helmets?
I would be happy to have a helmet ready to go for anyone that would like to wear one.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What's the pleasure of the board on this? If there are no further questions, it's being recommended with pretty specific stipulations. It would be a pilot for just this season. It sounds like it's still feasible to do it this season.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as a pilot, and I'm fine for it, and I hope it gets, gets up and running in time, so we can have a true test of it. And I think the limitations that we recommend are appropriate, keeping it out of some of the busier intersections in busier areas. But you are a brave man. It is mayhem out there, and it is very dangerous. I've had some employees that have nearly been killed this year just trying to get to work safely, and it is mayhem. So good luck to you.
So is that a motion?
That's the most I'm going to approve it. It's a warning, and maybe I'm trying to talk him out of it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have, Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
may, I have one
course.
question. What, it looked like Chief Pittman had some comments that were on here with some questions that my guess were answered by town staff. And I just want to make sure that public safety was okay with this with us moving this forward.
I know that they're not here, but
I will note that public safety was part of the traffic safety work group that reviewed this proposal, and that group voted to take no action on the proposal. And there were several concerns raised at that meeting that are in the traffic safety minutes.
May
Go
I
ahead.
quickly respond?
Yes.
So as many of you know, the options would be motion to reject, motion to take no action, or motion to approve. So I think to answer your question, if they were opposed to it moving forward, they would have taken a motion to reject.
why don't we just take a vote? Is that okay? All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
No.
Tom Dixon,
No.
Matt Fay,
Yes.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
I'm sorry, what? Can you
I
say
said
that?
aye, yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes, so that passes 3-2 for the pilot program. Good luck, be safe, provide helmets, go slow.
I'm assuming that we're gonna have to work something out with the finance department regarding insurance. Do we have to, since he's running that on town, or no? We'll be in touch.
It was in the proposal. There was a number in there.
Okay, next up, I actually have a conflict with these three pertaining to Masaquet, so I am going to recuse myself and hand it over to Ms. Moore to chair.
Okay, so on to real estate matters. Shall I just pass this to Vicky?
Yeah.
Okay, Vicky? And Vicky, if you would help us understand whether we need to do them individually or whether we can approve them as a group once it's time for a motion.
I actually, if I can tell you right now, I would probably recommend that you take them individually, because they are individual transactions, although they're in the same location area. So the first one is a vote for a conveyance of Lot A, Atlantic Avenue. And this is going to the land bank. It is a parcel of land that's 2,073 square feet and abuts Atlantic Avenue and Potomac Ave. All of these transactions, though, are in the same neighborhood. They have yard sale parcels that were created in order to provide the abutters with the opportunity to purchase the yard sale parcels available to them. So this one is for the land bank. There are no standard restrictions as far as being used for residential purposes. Rather, instead, because it's going to the land bank, it is to be used for purposes for which the land bank's charter is authorized to use their properties for. So any questions on this?
No, is the board ready? Any questions from the board or a motion?
I'll look to it. It looks in order. I move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, to number 2.
So the next property is for Lot B, Masaquet Avenue and Atlantic Avenue. It is for a parcel of land that is 31,063 square feet approximately. It abuts the property that is currently owned by Brian and Georgine Zevnik. And it's shown on the plans that are referenced, the disposition plan. This property is going to be conveyed for the purchase price of $59,019.70 which is based on the price factor for that particular neighborhood. And it is subject to the standard restrictions that we do put into the yard sale parcels. The property has to be used for residential purposes, and any division, subdivision, combination of this property will require the prior written consent of the select board. So, and they also must combine this parcel with the existing property that they have currently. And they also had a yard sale parcel previously that they had acquired. Any questions that you may have?
Any questions from the board?
Just a couple of comments for Tom's edification more than anything. We've, this has been improved over the years. I think we have had issues where parcels were taken, in a different name, and then we ended up with an extra parcel, sort of with the hardscape and the stuff going in the harbor, which is not the intent of the program, isn't to, sort of make things worse. And so I think that, when I look at these, I'm checking for things like that to make sure that we're not, sort of doing it. I think one thing I would love to see the real estate committee is look at the pricing again. I've heard there's a little, little discussion at their group level, and I'd love us, not tonight, but at some point, give them direction to look and see if the pricing is correct on the future. But I'll move approval on this one.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to add that the price factoring came from the assessor's office, and they have been the ones that have been determining that amount. So you may want to, consider adjusting that also with their discussions.
Okay, so I have a motion for Mr. Fee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Reed, given the motion, do you have a need to comment?
I'm just here in case there are any other questions. I represent the adjacent owner who will be acquiring the property on this one and
Okay.
also the next one.
Okay, thank you. By roll call vote, Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, and then on to number 3.
And the last property that's being considered this evening is the sale of Lot D, Masaquet Avenue. It contains 3,433 square feet approximately. And it also is going to be conveyed for the sales price of $6,522.70. As with Lot B, this property, the deed will contain the same restrictions. The property must be used for residential purposes, and any further division or subdivision of the property must be have the prior written approval of the select board before doing so. And they are subject to combining this parcel with the existing parcel to create one lot.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Any questions from the board or a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
the chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Don?
Next up, we have the request for acceptance of a non-exclusive walking path easement over parcel H1 Woodbine Street and Nobadeer Avenue, portion of 18 Nobadeer Avenue, as shown on plan of land entitled Roadway Disposition Plan in Nantucket, Mass. of Nobadeer Avenue, Woodbine Street, Assessors Map 80 and 87, dated December 29th, 2010, prepared by Bracken Engineering, Inc. and recorded with the Nantucket County Registry of Deeds as plan number 2011-10. Andrew Vorse.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. This is really a cleanup item. This is an oversight from an earlier sale of part of this paper street that went to the prior owner. The current owners basically have agreed to correct this at no cost to the town and have granted this voluntarily, and we're very appreciative of that. This is a walking path that comes down Woodbine and people use it in Surfside to get to the beach. So I'd ask you to please approve this. So we can have that legally established.
Any questions? Motions?
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fay,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Next up, we have request for acceptance of use restrictions for properties on Old South Road known as 105 Old South Road, 107 Old South Road, and lots 25 and 26 as shown on Land Court Plan number 16514-G as a result of Article 66 of 2023 Annual Town Meeting, which changed zoning map from residential 20 R20 zoning district to commercial neighborhood CN zoning district. Andrew, are you addressing this?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. This item, we're asking for the board, this warrant article was voted at town meeting. This was a condition of our acceptance that there would be voluntary restrictions on this property, which took away, this is in the Wellhead Overlay District, so uses that are hazardous to the overlay, formula businesses, because there was an opportunity to possibly combine properties. That is part of the restriction, and uses that might be not welcomed by the adjoining owners have all been restricted by the property owner. This article got strong support at town meeting. So in order for this to be a valid restriction, we need you, the select board, to accept it. The planning or the plus office in the future will enforce that through any, if there are violations to it, it'll be through zoning enforcement. So we would ask you to please approve this so it can go on record and follow through with that earlier vote at town meeting this year.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
And any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fay,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have two public hearings. Public hearing to consider accepting the Nantucket Open Space and Recreation Plan pursuant to State Division of Conservation Services regulatory process. This was continued from April 12th and May 10th. There have been some alterations made at our request. And hopefully we can move it forward tonight.
Great, thank
Good
you.
evening.
Great, thank
Just-
you, Madam Chairman and board members. I'm Brandon Kunkel. I'm with Weston and Sampson. I'm the practice leader of our landscape architecture program and planning. And we've been working with Andrew and his team since we last met with you folks in April to go back and refine the plan based on some of the comments, as well as here we had an additional public hearing a few weeks back. And so we're here back today to present the updates as well as ask for the board's endorsement of the plan. If you recall, the purpose of this open space and recreation plan is really to help set up the framework and guidelines over the next 7 years. And what that allows the town to do is be able to then pursue grant funding for certain projects if they're outlined within the OSRP. We've actually have submitted a draft of the plan to the state. They reviewed it. We provided some comments. We've incorporated those comments. So that's why we're here today to now get the endorsement from the town of the final draft to allow us to present the final report to the state. It's good for 7 years. It's on a 7-year cycle. But one thing to remember that this is a living document. It's not intended to be the end all be all because needs change over time. It's really just to set up the framework of addressing the current needs and then projecting out over the next 7 years. And we'll talk about that in the next few slides. First, I wanted to, so here's a quick agenda. I just gave the sort of the overview of the final draft and where we're at. I'm going to give talk about the feedback and the refinements that we've made. And then I'll give an overview of the summary of community needs, and then the action plan highlights, and then ultimately how we get this over the finish line to be able to get submitted to the state. As I noted earlier, we submitted to the state really back in December. That started the clock as it relates to the timeline. So you guys are good from a timeline perspective through the year 2029. Next slide. So additional feedback. So we met with you folks back in April. There were some concerns about not being heard, or that perhaps we didn't get the right information or all the information. So working with the Plus staff over the last 2 months, we've been receiving comments and having conversations with stakeholders as well as community members. And they've been reviewed and incorporated into the OSRP that was submitted for your endorsement last week. And I just, again, want to give a special thank you to all the stakeholders and those that have contributed. The information is invaluable. It's constantly being updated, as I'm sure some of them are aware. So again, this is a living document, but they've been great about keeping us up to date on some of the data, particularly as it relates to land acquisitions or status of certain types of parcels. So thank you. Next slide. Again, as I noted just a slide or two ago, we did have a community meeting on June 15th, and we did basically a page turn of the OSRP, identified the comments and the edits, and we have incorporated those. So one of the final steps and why we're here tonight is to receive endorsements to submit to the state from the various boards that you see here. Next slide. So summary of community needs. And this is not just, you know, a lot of this will probably be things that are being experienced firsthand. Some of your own awareness and acknowledgements, I'm sure will resonate. But as you may imagine, this is New England. One of your biggest challenges is being able to provide year-round recreation activities, just given the harsh weather climate that you all experience out here. And it's a limited outdoor season. So really you're talking about, you know, 6 to 8 months at best of outdoor activities with good weather, reasonable weather. It's not to say there's not winter activities, but from at least from an overall perspective, you know, whether or not it's rainstorms or other severe weather events. But what that forces is a lot of stress or requirements or requests for indoor activities. And right now you folks are challenged with that. And so one of the main priorities and something that came out of the last board meeting back in April was a request or a desire for a community center or recreation center. So we are recommending within the report, and we moved it way up in the priority list, to set up a committee to explore the potential for a community or recreation center. Again, I'm not here to say what the town of Nantucket should or should not do. Really, this report is a framework of data that helps guide conversations and decision-making over the next 7 years. As you may or may not be aware, your population is growing ahead of schedule or ahead of predictions. You guys are already exceeding your 2040 population projections. And so, and one of those largest demographics is the age of 65 and older, an elderly population, which is really great. It's an active age group from based on the feedback that we've received, and they want more outdoor activity and recreation opportunities. Another growing demographic is children under the age of 18, more active sports opportunities for them, which really then puts a demand on active recreation and where those events can happen. And then related to the senior population, just something to note, it's really a lot of single occupants. And so those folks want to be able to get out and socialize and hang out and be able to have some place to go. And that's one of the biggest challenges at this moment for you folks. Next slide. In general, you folks love and truly do appreciate the outdoor activities that you do have. And it's almost to a fault, for better, for worse, in that you guys want more. And it's putting stress on the existing activities that you do have now because there's not enough of it, or there's not enough infrastructure to support it, such as a lack of parking at some of the locations. And you, particularly in the summer, as I'm sure you're aware and have experienced, your population balloons exponentially, and it's causing frustrations because folks aren't able to get out and do those activities that they would love to do because there's just no room to do them, or it's overcrowded. And it's putting also stress on those facilities and requiring more maintenance. And it's in general, the community does believe that your facilities are in good shape. They do appreciate it, and they are in general meeting the needs that are out there. And then you guys do love your open space, and you do want to keep it protected and not being used for development projects. And so I think that's really important. Again, it does kind of cause a bit of stress. You want to protect it and keep the natural beauty, totally appreciate that. And that's amazing and awesome, and it's important. But it also causes stress for being able to provide certain activities such as sports fields. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Next slide. And then overall, the aging population, as I mentioned, you're very active. You want to have more walking, jogging, and trail-based recreation, as well as programming, and whether or not that's indoor programming or just programming in general. You guys want more of it, and that's amazing and awesome. And then also, it's noted that given the increase of the younger population, that more active and physical recreation activities should be encouraged and supported through programming. Next slide. So we identified 6 goals. We wanted to make sure that the goals were reasonable, obtainable, and we didn't want to be able to, we could lay out 15 goals, but really we wanted something that could be implemented over the next 7 years. There's a lot baked into each of these goals. Some of the goals actually have up to 14 action items within the report. These are just the summaries of them. So goal number 1, protect your public lands, use them for recreational purposes. And that's a balance, but also protecting the ecosystem, the water supply, food management, and indoor and outdoor recreation activities. Next slide. Provide and maintain a high quality inventory of parks. And this goes to the recently created Parks and Recreation Department with Charlie. He's done a pretty amazing job maintaining and keeping the parks up and running, which is great. But if you're going to expand them, he needs to also expand his staff to be able to support those activities. Next slide. Also improve connections in general awareness of the open space and recreation areas. It was actually a little surprising about some of the properties folks don't even know about. So some of the requests that have come in was better informational signage, better awareness, or creating awareness of available properties where people may be able to go and recreate. Next slide. And then preserve the island's sense of place. You guys have an amazing island, such a great location. Obviously, during the summer, everyone wants to be here, but it comes at a price. It puts a lot of stress on the island's natural resources. And so just keeping up with those resources in doing preservation or maintenance of those resource areas, including water and your open spaces as well. Next slide. Integrate your open space and recreation plan, this plan here tonight, with other initiatives that might be going on, such as the athletic field recreation master plan, which we were fortunate to be part of. They do tie into each other and they inform each other. That's where a lot of the active recreation data came from the athletic field master plan in order to inform this open space and recreation plan. There's other initiatives going on in town, and those should be considered as part of the planning process as this moves forward. And then also consider leveraging your properties for climate change as well. Tom Nevers Park is a great example of that. It's right on the coast. It has its challenges, but you know, there's great opportunity with using open space, particularly as it relates to climate change and sea level rise. Next slide. And lastly, this goes related specifically to active field use and court use. The Nantucket Public Schools are definitely a key partner in this plan. They understand that, but they have their own challenges as it relates to getting the students themselves. So it's causing a lot of stress related to being able to provide enough active recreation fields, courts, in general, outside of school hours or school planned times for practices or other activities, to be able to then designate them for the town's recreational uses. And that's related specifically. It's sort of a challenge in that, and we're sympathetic to it as well. Just a better understanding of the PFAS within synthetic turf fields. I know that's a key challenge for the school system. Next slide. So lastly, so again, there's a few minor comments that have come in over the last week. So we'll be incorporating them. I have a meeting early next week. And so we'll be refining it, but we'll also be accepting comments from tonight's meeting. Our goal is to get this thing wrapped up and submitted to the state for final approval. And as I noted earlier, you guys do have conditional approval at the state at this time. You're allowed to apply for grants. The money just won't be awarded until they have the final endorsed OSRP in their hands. Next slide. And thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And I'll leave it to you folks for questions.
Okay, any questions? Andrew Vorse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just thank you, Brandon. And just so I think you all know that this consultant, Weston and Sampson, has done your recreational master plan and is also our consultant on Tom Nevers bike path. So they're doing a lot of work to advance recreational goals here. So, and I would ask that the board hopefully will vote this tonight, subject to any non-substantive final changes. Special thanks to Jesse Bell at the Land Bank, who provided a lot of information, Emily Molden, who reviewed our last open space plan, and we incorporated her suggestions in the plan, And all the people that spoke up about the indoor recreation, that was a learning experience. I know Sylvie is here, provided a lot of information and knowledge about that. And we've incorporated that. One of the goals is for you all to appoint a committee within the next 24 months, I believe, to start gathering some information of maybe the experience of other communities and to outline some specifics, because, you know, right now that's still a fairly conceptual idea. So the planning board has voted to approve this, so is the NP and EDC. And that motion was unanimous and made by our Conservation Commission members. So I would ask you to move forward with this, please. Thank you.
Okay, I will take the online next. This is a public hearing. Anyone who's present can go first.
Yeah.
Please state your name
Madam
for the
Chair,
record.
Board, thank you. My name's Gary McCarthy. I'm president of Nantucket Youth Lacrosse. I'm here on behalf of our board that consists of Aaron Myers, Jocelyn Benny, Bert Turner, Greg McKechnie, Alexa Coleman, Scott Holmes, Quinn Vizzi, who was here with his two daughters that had to leave to feed them dinner, Corey Gamble, Noah Gerstmeyer, Brian Herlihy, Sam Chambers, Katie Krupe Sullivan, Matt Dwyer, Jim Hurd, and Sarah Holden Roth. Here tonight to support the concept of an indoor recreation facility. You know, I think one thing that's super important is affordability and accessibility for recreational activities. We've gone out of our way this last year and partnered with the Boys and Girls Club to run our Learn to Play program there and made it free. We've also provided scholarships to anybody, no questions asked. We increased our registrations by 1/3, by over 60 kids, and provided over 60 scholarships to kids so that they had an opportunity to play. Limited amount of things that kids can do in the off season. You know, that a lot of the kids that play lacrosse also play hockey. It costs $2,600 for a kid to play hockey. I think that the opportunity to get kids recreating and give them the opportunity in a year round, but certainly in the off season is mission critical for physical and mental well-being of the kids. So as a program, and, you know, frankly, it can be used for a variety of other things, trade shows and a variety of events. So I think in other towns that have done this, it's been a huge success, and we definitely support it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Aisha Khan online, and then Jill Viet has stepped up next.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's wonderful to see all this laid out. I just had a quick question, and I think what I would like is, could we have, when we're talking about the indoor facility, are we speaking specifically of artificial turf? Is that what would be laid inside? And if so, can we have an unbiased pros versus cons list or something that we can look into from, you know, from different various institutions? UMass Lowell has some great feedback on that. I know Mount Sinai has some great information that they've looked into with artificial turf. My concern with that, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record, is that there are chemicals in there, and I want to make sure that the benefits outweigh the risks. And I know with our aquifer, it looked like perhaps leaching into the aquifer was an issue. So we made, you know, it seemed like maybe that was not the right time to go forward with an artificial turf. My worry is when you bring that indoors, then all of those chemicals and all of those, you know, volatile and unvolatile chemicals are then trapped inside, and that is basically what you breathe in and inhale, and dust is what you consume. So then it's not leaching into artificial turf is not leaching into our aquifer. It's just staying inside for everyone playing to consume it and inhale it. And I know we say a lot of things like, well, you know, other towns are doing it, and we hear the word safe. I would caution that word because, you know, 2 years ago, other towns were also spraying the foam, and we were told it's safe, and the firefighter gear was safe. And, so other towns are doing things that are now, the science is pointing in a different direction. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Genevieve?
Hey, I just wanted to thank Andrew and thanks for the extra, and Brandon, and thanks for the extra public comment that we were able to come and share our views about how important indoor is. The only thing I'd say you didn't put in there, you said harsh weather, but you didn't say wind. And I think that's really what we're talking about here is wind. So anyway, thank you. And thanks for everybody who, this really is important because our population has changed. We are a denser community and the statistics in that report, if you read all of it, it is pretty compelling just how many people are playing so many sports. And I know I've said it before, but I can't tell you enough how much it means to me to play with people of so many different ages. My friend's here, he's in his 20s. I play with people in their 80s. And I think that's what this is about. It's about community building. It's not about getting into arguments about turf or not turf. This is about bringing people together. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, just to note, we're right now we are talking about the open space plan. We're including this. There will be extensive conversations about an indoor facility and what's going to go in it and where it's going to be and how it's going to be funded. And it's going to be a tremendous effort that's going to require a lot of input and participation, potentially a public-private partnership, potentially a partnership with the land bank or other organizations. And this is at the very beginning, and we will obviously be having this on as its own agenda item in the future and establishing a specific committee. But I have another person standing up, but Brooke, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say we're not designing an indoor facility. We're not planning an indoor facility. We have included the language that allows us to seek funding for an indoor facility. That's what's on our agenda tonight. So I appreciate everybody's passion about this, but we actually need to move this forward to make the indoor facility even possible. So stepwise, but I'm happy to hear from people. I don't want to spend a lot of time adjudicating what that might look like tonight because that's way ahead of the curve.
Yes, but I definitely want to take a couple more comments about the support for it. And hopefully, some people who are writing stories will pick this up and promote it.
I understand we're under some time pressure here.
Yes, no,
I'm gonna
just
try to be very fast. but
please
I
go
just
ahead.
have a couple
Just
of
state your
words.
name for the record.
I'm Cameron Murphy. I'm a year-round resident of the island, and I'm here tonight to speak in favor of a potential indoor athletic facility on the island. I go to yoga classes, I run, I play soccer. I've recently found a passion for racket sports. And I know it's easy to get outside, be active, social during all of the summer months, but that changes once the winter months roll around and it gets colder and the nor'easters roll in. I think that I speak for all of my fellow younger adults who live on the island year round, and most of them tend not to show up to these kinds of meetings. I would love the opportunity to get out, run around a track, kick a ball, just go out and be social in the winter. And I don't think that we get that very much right now. We don't have that opportunity on the island. I'd also like to note that there are probably well over 100 year-round adult residents that play soccer. There's lots of us that play racket sports. A recent racket sport that I picked up and started to love is pickleball. That's I wish that was something that we could include in this athletic facility. I've made a lot of my close friends here while playing sports. One of them being Matt's son, Henry. I've met lots of people. And I also think that it helps to address some of the mental health issues that we face in the wintertime, such as, depression, and it gets us out and it gets us active. And I think it would be a great thing for the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just state your name for the record, please.
I'm Justin Quinn. I'm a year-round resident. I just want to reiterate the 100 soccer players that are there on Sunday. I went and watched, and there were families there, so there were probably almost 200 people there. I was the only person there with my phone out. Nobody else had a phone out. That's pretty cool. And so the 450 soccer players, there's 250 lacrosse players. This spring, my daughter played lacrosse, and I think she had 5 games in a row canceled because of weather. The first one gets canceled, the second one gets canceled, but the third one, why even show up to practice? So that's my point.
Oh, sorry, I have one more online comment. Jasmine, I really don't want to butcher your last name, so I'm just going to have you state it.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Kasperzak. I am also just talking to be in favor of the possibility of having an indoor complex. Not only am I an educator on the island, but I'm also a year-round resident here. And as this scenario would be great for a bunch of sports, it would specifically be great also too for our year-round gymnastics program. Currently, right now, the community school is offering classes for ages 1 to 12 years old. This past spring term, we had over 120 students with a waitlist of 63. And the numbers speak for themselves. We're not meeting the demand. We don't have a space that's able to store all of our stuff in one location. We have to break things up and set them down each day. So I just wanted to also include the gymnastics and the community schools also in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to note, I met with a number of people at the senior center yesterday, and seniors have a great deal of support for recreation and safe recreation, such as an indoor walking and indoor pickle and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of support for from all different areas in having healthy alternatives of things to do here in the wintertime. And I hope that everyone who has spoken tonight is ready to put a whole lot of effort and energy into this, because we're going to need help if we're going to try and do something this big. But it would be really great. But right now we have to do step 1, which is proving this plan. So can someone make a motion?
How about?
We have to close the public hearing. Sorry.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
By roll call? Brookmore?
Aye.
Tom Dixon?
Aye.
Matt Fee?
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb?
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Unanimous to close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Brookmore?
Aye.
Tom Dixon?
Aye.
Matt Fee?
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb?
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you all for your efforts. Thank you for the changes. And on indoor and outdoor, I'm looking forward to a lot more efforts. And
Thank you, Andrew.
yes, Andrew, that ties up a loose end before your last day. Next up, it's over to you, Libby, for your monthly town manager's report.
One more public hearing,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the water easements.
Oh, yes. If you don't mind, I'm not going to read this entire public hearing, but these are for perpetual water easements over a number of parcels in the Surfside, Monohansett, Webster, Okorwaw, Skyline area.
Yes, so, and Vicky Marsh is online as well. We, as you know, are doing an SRF funded water main extension project west of the airport. One of the things that we need to do in order to run the municipal water line down some of these private roads is do a taking of water easements. It is strictly easement only, just like we did with the Nantucket Harbor Shimo plus parcel sewer project. It's not a fee in any of the roads. It just allows the water company to install, maintain, and repair the water line, and there will be stubs left at every parcel so that people can connect. They would have to pay to connect from their property line into their property, but we would be providing stubs for everyone. And this is a major step to take in order to move forward with our water project in the fall. And it was approved by town meeting Article 96 at 2023 annual town meeting.
Yes. Okay. This is a public hearing. Are there any public comments or any questions from the board? Can we make a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor by roll call? Brookmore?
Aye.
Tom Dixon?
Aye.
Matt Fee?
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb?
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Is there a motion to approve these takings?
Motion to approve the takings.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don
Thank
Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. And I'm so sorry, I jumped way ahead in the agenda. We still have the review of the potential warrant articles for town meeting as well.
So while Eric is pulling up the potential warrant articles, so I've started to develop a preliminary outline. This is the same format that I've been using for your annual town meeting warrant potential articles. And there is one item that was added since this was published. So let me just go through it quickly. So obviously the special town meeting's purpose is for short-term rentals. And please remember, we can be there for one night. That is all we have. Short-term rental articles, maybe 2 to 3. I know the work group met yesterday and I think they came up with some final recommendations that might need to get a little refined, but they've got the basics. And you are going to be hearing from them at your meeting on July 12th. Meanwhile, also, I don't know if this came up, but I think Brooke, you mentioned this to me, or one of you did, or maybe it came up at a meeting. I couldn't quite recall, about the possibility of community impact fee. Local option. Was that you?
It's been potentially on the menu of proposed articles from the short-term rental work group.
Okay.
Yet last night at short-term rental work group was our last meeting. I don't know about forever, but we did vote and reach consensus at the end last night. 7 of 9 of us. And part of that package is a la carte per town council's recommendation that the community impact fee needed to be separate from the zoning and general bylaws. So that is in our package that will come to us on July 12th as a separate item in addition to the zoning and general bylaws recommendations.
Okay, great. So again, more on that at your next, on July 12th. The planning department came in with a request for a zoning article. Andrew left something about the airport. Honestly, I don't exactly recall what it was, but they seemed to think it was something that needed to be done at the special. There are going to be some real estate items, conveyance of easements to the land bank. This is related to a project that they're doing at East Creek Road in front of our island home, and we already gave them a license. This would just be hopefully some very non-controversial easement grants. And some, hopefully another non-controversial thing would be some conveyance of parcels to the land bank adjacent to the Surfside wastewater treatment facility. And this is necessary for compliance with our natural heritage and endangered species permit for that project, which has been lingering for some time. And we need to get that closed out. There are, as Erica mentioned, there may be additional easements. I think you mentioned that. Did you just say this?
I didn't. So these are going to
Okay.
be mostly temporary construction easements just along the way as the design plans have been going forward. We've noted that there's probably going to be some brush cutting needed or some grading areas. So it's just temporary construction easements. Then the property will go back to normal. And then there's a couple of permanent construction easements to allow us to put a little pavement on, I think, 2 of the private roads, Monohansett and Okorwaw stubs, just to make that intersection work better.
Thank you. There's, I think, one additional real estate related article, which would be authorization for eminent domain taking of some easements in connection with a bicycle path along Somerset Lane. And I believe that will also require a home rule petition. So those need to be developed in order for that project to ultimately move forward. We have some potential appropriations or appropriation related articles. One would be potential supplemental funding for the Wait Drive seasonal employee housing project, that we will know more about that within the next, Brian, couple of months, as that project hopefully goes out to bid. Resubmittal, this is a potential for you all to determine, but I sort of heard, let's discuss it a few weeks ago. Resubmittal of Article 15 from the 2023 annual town meeting. That was the Nobadeer Fields improvements of $3.8 million. It didn't pass at town meeting, but it did pass at the following election. And a debt exclusion like this needs an affirmative vote from town meeting and an election. So since you already have the election vote, this would be a potential opportunity to get a town meeting vote. We have evidently potential need for supplemental funding. Probably potential is more like likely need for supplemental funding for the Nosh Shop sewer pump station upgrade. Waiting for a little more information from the sewer department on that. I'm told by the airport they need supplemental funding for a airport housing project. And the reappropriation of fiscal 23 and 24 rental housing assistance funds. If you recall, we appropriated $1 million in each of those fiscal years, have not used them yet because we have not been able to really pin down a rental assistance program. This was going to be for town employees. It's proven to be very difficult to really get at it in a meaningful way. And we also weren't able to get union buy-in on it, perhaps because we weren't able to be as detailed as they wanted as well. So we do have some ideas of what those funds could be reappropriated for. Some quote other items could be to establish a special purpose stabilization fund to allow for use of opioid settlement funds, which are pending up. Have we received them yet? Okay, but they can't be appropriated without going into this special stabilization fund, and then they have to need town meeting vote to appropriate. But those could potentially be added to the Health and Human Services allocations. We would like to add an additional site to the DPW facility design appropriation article. If you recall, at 2023 town meeting, we added the Sun Island / Delta Fields site to that article because it only specified design for a new DPW facility at 188 Masaquet Road. And now we would like to add the Shadbush property, which is where we have discussed the shooting range for the Hunting Association, but we've also been in discussions with them about the possibility of co-located sites. And you all got an update about this a few weeks ago. But in order to use those funds, we need to add Shadbush. And increase the town clerk salary in accordance with the common class study, very similar to what you did tonight with the Register of Deeds. A town clerk salary actually requires a town meeting vote. We have 3 citizen warrant articles that were submitted as of the deadline of Wednesday, June 21st. They were all sewer district related, and they are all currently under review by the sewer department. This is on your continued review of warrant articles is on your agenda for next week. It's on your agenda for the next few weeks, kind of as a placeholder. But also, if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas or whatever at any particular meeting, then we can get the information for your next meeting. So do you have any questions about any of this? Okay.
A couple of quick comments. I think I've heard from citizens recently that have had this isn't because of the overrides, but this is because of the valuations have gone up in some of the neighborhoods and they're paying $500 more a year, in the neighborhood because the valuation changed. And that's what happens with gentrification. And that's what, and it's going to be worse. And so I think we have to be very careful that, with all these expenditures, that we find a way to, not be running people off the island. I thought it was interesting in the last, in the open space that in 10 years, we lost about 200 residences, and there was there were more people, there were fewer residences, but there were more people, which was in each residence, which was interesting. And so I think that's, we've got to make sure that we're thinking about, Don's talked about it. We're thinking about how do we change residential exemption? How do we adjust some of this to, reflect that for people? And that's one. The other is, I'm not sure, Tom, what short-term rental work group has come up with. If in fact it's something I feel may not pass town meeting, I hope that this board will support an article that can go in after if it is shot down. I think the principles that were put there, I think are pretty good, but I'm worried that it's not going to be supported because it's going to be too easy to change outside of zoning. And so I think that there's another way to do this. And I hope that that'll be supported when the time comes, when we have to wrap this up. But I'm going to wait to see what is going on in your group to make sure maybe some of that was, was tackled. So there were a lot of discussions, there were a lot of, sort of definitions that were still up in the air. So I'll wait till the 12th and hope that those are okay. And, that would be, but if not, I would like to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, Tom, and then I have a hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Matt, real quick. I think that probably the final article will be done way before that, or excuse me, the final draft will be done way before that. So you'll get a chance to look at and digest it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Billy Cassidy, take a public comment.
Pardon me, Madam Chair. Libby addressed it. I had a question about that bike path taking on Somerset Lane that I didn't note on here, but asked and answered, and I forgot to put my hand down. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. Are we good with that agenda item for now? To be continued?
Yep, to be continued. So the monthly town management report, I didn't get a chance to give you something in writing, so I'm just going to give you some verbal updates. We are well underway with prep for July 4th. Lots of town staff time involved in that. And that is sort of being led and organized by, not sort of, is being led and organized by Culture and Tourism. So thank you very much to them, spending a lot of time on that. Culture and Tourism Director Chantal Blaise Murphy is also leading a summer issues work group that I started a couple of years ago. I guess it was during COVID. So she's taking it on and meeting with different stakeholders within town and exterior to town, such as the chamber and other groups. And they meet on a regular basis to talk over various summer issues, make sure people are on the same page, and discuss ways to address certain things that might need to be addressed. As I already mentioned, the CTO has been hired. We are very close to hiring a DPW director. I should have more information from you on that at your next meeting. We are finalizing some hiring details, so the name is not public at this moment. The Town Council Study Committee, I think I emailed you all about this, but I can't quite remember if I did or not. As a result of some discussion at a prior meeting, I've been in contact with the Mass Municipal Association. They actually do not provide assistance to municipalities to help them with changing their forms of government. However, they did refer me to the Mass Municipal Managers Association, which has a form of government committee. And I've been in touch with the chair of that committee, who is a town manager in Bridgewater. Maybe it's West Bridgewater. I can't quite remember. Anyway, I know him, and he and I are going to schedule a time to talk about what they might be able to provide. They are not going to be able to come here and help facilitate meetings, but they could provide something like very similar to what we had in November with some town managers who came on and talked about different forms of government and how their towns went about it. So there's certainly that resource that could be provided. And he and I are going to talk about consultant firms that we might be able to engage to help with this process. Collective bargaining is well underway, and a lot of time is being spent on that. The annual town meeting, at your meeting last week, we were discussing the dates of Tuesday, May 7th through Thursday, May 8th, and I was going to talk with the school to make sure that was okay with them. That looks like a go. There are some logistical setup issues with when people can get in there and set up and that sort of thing, but it sounds like we can work through those. So I've asked the town clerk's office to be sure that the Options Tech, the e-voting company, can commit to those dates. And I think at your next meeting on either next week or the 12th, we could put the finalization of the date on, just an affirmative vote to schedule the dates for that. And then I can probably come back to you with a timeline a little bit later. And what else was I going to mention? Housing. We have a lot of issues surrounding housing right now, including leases, rentals, trying to find places for people, including vacant positions where they're going to be housed, and maybe more importantly, the management of all of these things. So we we are working on how to make sure the housing office is appropriately structured to manage all of that. So that's just, it's a lot because one thing leads to another. And if we do this, then we need that. And I just, it just goes on.
I
and on.
feel your pain. Every
Yeah.
day I get a call. We need a new fridge. We need a new stove.
Exactly.
This
We
is-
lost the key.
there's a leak, there's a smell.
Yeah.
It's constant.
Who paid the bill? What? It's endless. And those are basically the main things I wanted to report out on.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question to Libby?
Yes.
As far as thank you for working with those town management organizations. Can we at least start posting to get a committee together? Given that it takes a month or two to do that.
Yep, Eric and I discussed that today, and we're going to get an ad out very shortly.
Thank you.
Malcolm, your surroundings are
great.
pretty fancy. I just noticed. I know, look at how fancy.
Well, it's 12:30 where I am, but it's very nice where I am. Thank you.
Next up, we have select board reports and comments. We have our 2023-24 select board committee representative appointments. There is a sheet and I think that, let's put that up.
Is everyone happy with what they're in?
Very much so.
Are there any,
Approval of what is presented?
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Any committee reports in addition to what we've already?
I have a couple of quick ones. I talked a little bit earlier about traffic. It is nuts out there, so people's got to be really careful. I had a couple employees that were on a scooter that were coming to work that had to dump the scooter. They had the right of way. Car rolled right through a stop sign. Their choice was run into the car or dump the scooter. So they ended up in the hospital, had to dump the scooter. It's a pretty and I've got a friend who bikes every day and he has 2 or 3 horror stories every day. I hope, it is constant. So be careful. I have friends who are painting and they received a blocking sidewalk form that you have to fill in a form to block the sidewalk. So they were going to do that and that's fine. But it was ironic because the place that they were blocking, as soon as they're done painting the fence, that sidewalk is parked on by cars all day long. And so we're asking these guys to fill out a form and not block it. And then we're letting cars, this was up by Milk Street, somewhere like that. We let cars park right on it all day long. So no one can walk on that sidewalk anyway. And so it was kind of ironic. I looked at it and said, well, doesn't kind of make sense to me, but it is what it is. But at some point, I think we have to get a hold of some of those things. Brooke and Tucker spoke at a seminar the other day for Preservation Institute, and it was about preservation and housing. And I thought it was a very, and I skipped coastal resiliency, which I don't like to do to go to this, but I'm glad I did because there were some really good presentations. And it was interesting, some of the things that are, we like to think that we're so special and it's not the same, but the speakers were sort of telling us that we are the same, that a lot of places are dealing with some of the issues that we're dealing with. And there was one lady, and I can't remember where she was. She was down in the south, like Savannah and places like that. And she was talking about how these were dilapidated places and, and over the last few years, they've been gentrified and the same things that are happening here have happened there, where the houses are become very expensive and people can't live there anymore. And it's, and so that was interesting. The one I really thought, there was a man who got up at the end and I was looking and I thought, oh, he's going to be kind of stodgy. He looks like, a professor I would have had in college 40 years ago, but he got up and he was very, very entertaining. And it came from like South Dakota or North Dakota, and he had a lot of common sense. And it was just very interesting how he could boil down the issues that we're dealing with from, and he does this, he's done it He's looked at housing and economic aspects in every state, but what was it, Nevada? He hasn't done Nevada yet, so if anyone knows Nevada. But he's basically, he kind of nailed, sort of what we're dealing with. He talked about, how we think supply and demand and the market will take care of it. And he was saying, your supply is limited and your demand is unlimited. You have to intervene. It's not going to take care of it. He brought up an interesting thing I hadn't thought about, but nationally, it's cheaper to renovate a pre-1960 building than it is to build new. It's kind of not what we hear, but he said nationally, maybe not in Nantucket, but nationally it's cheaper. And when they build them, they last longer. Those 1960, when they renovate a 1960 building, they last longer. And, I believe that because I've renovated some buildings and the wood that's there is hard and it lasts. It doesn't rot as quickly. The stuff we're making things out of isn't all laminated. It really does last. I went and looked at some of the windowsills at the town building and some of them are rotted, but the rest of those windows are in great, or could be painted and be in really good shape. And so I think that it's sometimes it's cheaper to renovate old and reuse than it is to build new. And I think that was something to think about. He also was describing a town in Kentucky that was, they were having trouble with affordable housing. But at the same time, they have about 4,000 shotgun houses. They're 800,000 square feet houses and they're all historic, but they're being snapped up. And these are being knocked down because they aren't quote unquote good enough. They aren't but what he said, which was interesting, is we're building for the 1% or the 0.5%, and we're taking away housing from everybody else. And he also talked about carrying capacity and said it, which we all know that it's kind of subjective, but he also, and so I think I might have been Brooke asked, geez, have you seen anyone that has sort of figured this out? And he said, well, it's really hard. And Venice hasn't done it really. And, the national parks haven't done it. I know Milford Sound in New Zealand, they do a good job of only letting a certain number of people walk there. But he basically was saying there was one town in Portugal. And he said, and this is kind of, it pertains to us. It's in the people, they used to do cork. So they used to have the cork trees and make cork for the world. And that the trees started to die and it didn't work. And so they were looking at the next economy and they decided it was going to be tourism and it started to work. But what they've done is the residents live inside the old walls. It's a 2,000-3,000 year old town. I can't remember the name of it. And then the hotels and things are outside and they make all the decisions, not for individual benefit. They make it for the benefit of the society, for the entire town. And they say, if we take care of inside of the walls, it will take care. If we take care of ourselves and take care of the inside of the walls, then the rest will work out. And he said that was the only place that he has seen that had, sort of done a good job of taking care of their capacity, the carrying capacity. And I talked about, if your supply and demand is so out of whack, you have a broken economy. He ended on a interesting thing. His last slide, he said, Nantucket is an extraordinary place, but one that has exceeded its carrying capacity physically and economically. It has reached market failure driven by very limited supply and what often seems to be unlimited demand. Now he didn't give us any solutions necessarily. He did a lot of crazy ones, and inside some of the crazy ones, were a couple that might make sense. One, so the crazy ones are you tax people 100% on whatever they earn on their house. And, he put things out that, that would dampen demand, but those are all not going to work. But one of the ones that struck me that might work that we've talked about, but we haven't really followed through is if people are building, permanently affordable or building, workforce housing or residential housing, that you give a lot of waivers. You don't charge them the sewer fees. You don't charge them. Maybe their tax rate is different. You find a way to push as much incentive into the category you want. And I thought, I think he was trying to tell us that without really telling us that. We had to kind of read between the lines, but I thought that was interesting. If Mary Bergman sends a link, I will forward it to everyone. The only other thing I'll say is, I thought there would be more talk about form here and, you know, sort of how you would do it. But my own take on that is that there is, all our answers are here. They're in our history. If you look at the, you know, we say, oh, you can't have apartment buildings, they won't look good. Well, if you look back in our history, we had huge buildings that could be 50-unit apartments. You know, the Seacliff Inn and the Dreamland was moved across from, you know, across the harbor. So we've, you know, Surfside had one, Tom Nevers had one. So, you know, so we have those forms. We look around and we think our built environment, you know, we look downtown and everyone loves it. And then you look everywhere else and we're basically building 1970 Providence, Rhode Island. And then we're wondering why it doesn't look like downtown. And I think if we actually started to build like our, you know, more dense and like downtown, I think we would start to solve some of these issues. And if we, you know, if we gave that additional density with the required form and, you know, the required look, I think we could start to do that, you know. And so, and I thought there'd be more talk about that, which is kind of why I skipped crack. But I think, you know, I think we have those answers. We have row houses on Orange Street that would be incredible in other places that could, you know, and so I think, you know, I left kind of hopeful from the whole thing, and I'm glad I went. So thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I might, the spirit of
Yes.
collaboration in the room was amazing between preservationists and housing advocates, and that felt really good. And Tucker, if you want to talk about that, and then I'll talk about something I went to before that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just wanted to congratulate the Nantucket Preservation Trust and Preservation Institute, Nantucket. They really put on a fantastic forum and completely endorse what Matt and Brooke have been saying. There are a lot of great ideas and discussion, and looking forward to the collaboration with that part of the community as we, you know, continue to address the housing situation here. And you might not have heard a lot about new build, Matt, because it was a preservation program.
I've done new build too, Tucker. So give me a pre-1940 house anytime. Move me that.
Yeah, and then that reminded me that I went to an event the night before at the Athenaeum that was about deconstruction, and a presenter from San Antonio talked about how they've built a whole deconstruction, and that they have mandated deconstruction rather than demolition. And I just think it's a conversation that's worth having here. Obviously, the infrastructure to process materials is a challenge because of the cost of real estate here, but certainly it just made me think about how much demolition happens here, and can we avoid it, both in terms of preserving dwelling units that can be repurposed for affordable housing, and also reducing our costs of transporting demolished materials to landfills that may not be available to us in the long run. And so changing minds and changing the way we do things in a more significant way to get ahead of that curve before the landfills are shut off and we can't send the stuff there.
And that's another, just to follow up, that's another thing in our history. When I renovated 77 Orange, Sheila's shop, what we realized was that the shop had the foundation was charred, and it was some of the foundations that came out of the Great Fire. Some of the beams were charred that were up, and the walls were, you know, repurposed from other buildings. And here it is, you know, 250 years later, it's, you know, 200 years later, and the thing's going to go for another 200 years. And so I think that some of this is in our history, and we should try not to forget it.
Great comments. I mean, we do a lot more house moves than they do, I think. Most places, which is really good. And just, I mean, one thought, when I spoke with some of the seniors yesterday, they are very concerned about the e-bikes and the safety, and the extreme lack of helmets being worn anymore. And I think we need to bring back some education on helmet wearing and bike laws. And I mean, I see people going the wrong direction constantly. And if we're going to bring forth any kind of an article, which I mean, should be something that comes from BPAC, I think we need to seriously consider not a limitation on e-bikes, which I do not support, but a limitation on the ones that go over a certain speed. I mean, I just, unfortunately, someone died on my road last week.
Madam Chair, I was
Okay.
just going to make mention of a bike safety video that we are about to put out that Public Outreach has been working on, and it addresses a lot of those things that you just mentioned.
Okay.
Move to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Malcolm, thanks for staying up so late with us.
It's fine. I'll see you Monday.
Okay. Bye.
travels.
Bye.